Okay, so I made this video to show you guys how I do my reading strategies here in my class. And so I'm going to start off with this passage. And so every student's supposed to start off with 1, 2, and 3 each and every time. Whenever we start on 1, the students are going to scan the page. And so that's kind of quietly reading the passage just at a little faster pace. And so I normally give them maybe 4, no more than 5 minutes. And so students are going to quietly scan the whole story. And so let's just say they scan for about 4 to 5 minutes. And then whenever they're done, they cross out number 1. 2, this is where the students actually read the entire passage. And so as they're reading, they're thinking about what genre this is. And so there's an anchor chart I am going to send about the types of text that we've seen and that we're working on. And so just remind them to keep in mind what kind of text or genre that they're reading. And so they're going to read the entire passage. And so whenever I say read entire passage, we're talking about this right here, the background knowledge, the title, every single paragraph, all the way up to this back page, and also the author's note right here. And so let's just say they read the entire passage. They crossed out number 2. 3, depending on what kind of genre it is, they're going to write blurbs. Well, with narrative text, they write a sentence blurb for every page. And so what a blurb is a very brief summary of what they just read. So with narrative text, again, this is all in the anchor chart I will send. In a narrative text, you would be writing a sentence blurb per page. So it's going to be one sentence for what this whole page was about. And then you flip to the next one sentence for this whole page, and again, 1 sentence for this whole page. For I don't think I'd be giving you poetry, but for poetry, it would be the same thing, a sentence blurb for each page. And expository is a little different. So expository, you would be doing a blurb for each paragraph. And so you'd be doing a blurb. Okay, so for expository, you're going to do 1 or 2, maybe 3 tops words, maybe 4 tops words for each paragraph. And so, for example, we would say this was the life of a horse, so life of horse. But that's not what this text is today. And so, again, that's all on the anchor chart. And so that's what 3 is. 3 is always for blurbs. And I try not to give them no more than 10. That's actually a little too much time. No more than 10 minutes for each blurb. And so let's just say we went through the blurbs. Okay, so with this text, actually, this is a nonfiction narrative. So it would be nonfiction narrative. So they always write the genre here on top. Nonfiction narrative. And so because this is a narrative, it would be 1 sentence for each page. So you would ask, okay, so for me, I go through the whole thing. So I'd start with, okay, so the little girl started on the gate. This is where she meets Mr. Young. Her and Mr. Young start talking about ponies. And then Mr. Young starts telling her about the ponies. And then she meets Henry the horse, Raffles, Tiger. And then it starts to talk about where she learned a lot about ponies that day. And so what does she end up learning about ponies that day? And then they would be like, oh, she learned how to saddle a pony and ride a pony. I'm like, exactly. And then we learned that who was her favorite? Henry was her favorite. So what can we say in very, very, very few words? And to be honest, they are going to need some help. So I would probably give them 1 or 2 words. We could say, okay, so we could say L for Lisa, because that's the name of the a character in the story. Okay, Lisa what? Lisa learns about ponies and meets, sorry, that should be lowercase, Y. And they understand the concept of like breaking down someone's name just to 1 letter. So I would probably just ask them for a reminder. Who's L? Lisa. Who is Y? Young. And so we'll just move on from that. And so I'll do the same thing for this page. And so again, this is the third step. So this is after they've already read this page. And so again, I'd be like, okay, so in this paragraph, we start talking about the ponies. And this one, we learn about how they became friends and how Henry was her favorite. In paragraph 10, we learn that she has a few jobs at the stable. What were her jobs at the stable? And then hopefully they would be like, oh, to feed and water the ponies. I'd be like, great. And what kind of food did they eat? And it's right here, all grain. And what wasn't all grain? And if they don't remember, okay, let's go back to the text. Oat, corn, barley. And so again, just kind of giving them a rundown of this page. And then in this page, she tells us that Henry was her pony, but it's not actually her pony. Why wasn't it actually, why wasn't it her pony? And they'd be like, oh, because I never paid for him. Okay, great. And so here is where we enter our problem. What was the problem of the story? And just to guide them to those answers. And so again, so one sentence, so we could say information, again, very brief. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence. Information, or I'd probably just put info about 3 horses. Her job and problem. Like if anyone were to read this, you'd be like, what does that mean? But the students already read this, and this is just words that they're able to understand because it's in their own words. And then again, we'll just go to the next page. Again, give them a rundown. This is where she learned that Mr. Young sold her horse. She runs home to tell Daddy. Daddy was the one who ended up buying her horse, and then she and her friend Henry are best friends forever. And so again, what was this about? And so again, a very short paragraph. L learned, Y sold, H. And trust me, they remember what these letters mean. Dad bought H. And then, yes, I would go back and talk about that note too. Now talk about the picture. Oh, who is this? Oh, they can't see the picture, but oh, here's Henry. And then, great, once they do all 3 of those steps, they go to the question. And so I also sent a picture of the question strategies we go over, and it's called the RAR strategies. And so each letter stands for a step in the question strategy we do. So for example, so this is where you look at the RAR strategy. So step 1, read the question. Okay, so let's read the question. In paragraph 1, the word coaxed means. Okay, so step 2, let's stop and think about this question. What is this question really asking us? And I break down this question for them. So in paragraph 1, okay, so we know this word's going to be in paragraph 1. Okay, the word coaxed. And I don't know if I'm saying that right, so please excuse me if I'm not. Okay, so they're going to tell me that this word coaxed is in paragraph 1. And they're asking me what this word means. So stop and really, and I feel like that's a problem I've made before. Stop and really break down this question and ask them what this question is really asking you, or asking them. And then step 3 in our strategies, underline important words. And they should know what to underline. And I always tell them the underlined words should be the words that obviously stick out to them. But if every other word was to be taken out of that question, those underlined words still should ask the question. And this should still make sense. So paragraph 1, word coaxed means. So if every other word was taken out, we still know what this question's asking. Paragraph word coaxed means. It still makes sense. And so you're supposed to underline important words and find key words. And so that goes to our next anchor chart, keywords to look for in questions. And that's another picture I've sent. And so they're really good at this. So you should just ask them, okay, do we have any keywords we should circle? You underline important words, circle keywords. And so they should be like, means. Okay, so means tells us to look for context clues. And so remind them, okay, context clues are words that help us understand what this word means. So remind them, we're not looking for the context clue in the story, but we're looking for the meaning of this word. Because they do get those two confused, because there's a question over here that asks the opposite. What's the context clue from the story, not what this means. And so that's just how I'd guide them through the question. And then step 4 is read answer choices and find 2 silly ones. Before we even go back to paragraph 1, I like them to read the answer choices first, because I've made mistakes before where I can immediately go back to the story and my answer choice isn't even there. So I have them read the answer choices. Okay, before we move on, read the answer choice. A, urge. B, scared. C, frightened. D, learn. Okay, well, do maybe have some silly ones. And if they're like, just be like, okay, so what do they not really talk about in the story? Do you think, like I said, any silly ones? And so sometimes not. Okay, that's fine. Let's just go back to the story then. And then this is where you'd go to step 5 and show your proof. And to show proof, always have them do a paragraph number. And then they already know it's paragraph 1. And then they just flip back to the story. And this is where you would help guide them find that, help guide them to find that answer. And so the RAR strategy is used for every single question, and so is keywords. There's going to be very few times where there's not going to be a keyword, and every time we come across a new one, I end up adding it to the chart. So it should already be on the chart. But I think, like, for literally, if this still happens to come up, there's some questions that don't have keywords. If not, that's fine. They know how to answer it anyway. So normally just RAR strategies and keywords. And so that should be just about, and you just do that for every single question. That's just kind of a quick rundown of how I do my strategies.